Welcome to the community assessment. This is the assignment where you need to get on a bus. This does need to be a public bus, not like the Wendover Fun Bus. If you are out of town, this cannot be done from a vacation location. This does need to be done in the community where you live or the community where you work. If you live in a community that does not have a bus system, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the nearest community with a public transportation system. So if you live in a smaller town off the Wasatch Front, what town would you go to if you were referring people to services? What's the nearest town that you would go to? Is it Logan? Is it Ogden, Salt Lake, Orem? Go to the nearest town that has the bus system, and that allows you to get a better community assessment for a community where you'd be referring individuals, referring patients. I always encourage you to look at the unit outcomes and see how this ties into the course as a whole. If you look under the description, you will see this does need to be public transportation. This is not driving around in your own car. You can do this in groups of 2 to 3 students, but you need to make sure that you're choosing a bus route at least an hour long to be able to get the information that you need. Communities are similar to patients in the fact that if you don't do an assessment on your patient, then you don't really know what's going on with them. Not every patient is the same. You need to really look and listen and feel to see what's going on with that individual patient to know what treatment or what intervention might be the most appropriate. And the same is true with communities. Not all communities are the same. Individual needs, individual struggles, individual assets need to be evaluated. And so what you'll do is you're going to research and find an appropriate bus route. If you take the bus all the time, then that's fantastic. You may not have much challenge in this, but we'll get down to the form that you need to fill out either way. If you have never been on the bus before, please go onto the UTA site. You can look up different bus routes. If you are not already aware, you can get a free UTA pass, which includes FrontRunner and the bus, through Weber State just for being a student. And if you're not sure how to do that, please contact your instructor. The FrontRunner does not count as an option for this assessment because the FrontRunner doesn't really go through towns, through communities. It more connects communities to each other, often from a peripheral region within the town. There's a lot of information you'll need to collect while you're doing this, and we'll get into that here in just one second. But do note that you can be in groups of 2 to 3 students. If you do that, you need to make sure that you are not just chatting with each other, and it would be strongly recommended that you sit on opposite sides of the bus from each other so you can both see past each other. It's often hard to see what's going on behind you, but if there's 2 of you, that way you have a more comprehensive view of the surroundings. You're going to be doing the community assessment get on the bus assignment while you're on the bus. This doesn't need to be typed up into Canvas, but what I recommend doing is going and downloading this document, and you can print it off or you can do an electronic copy and carry it with you. But you need to take this document with you and fill it out as you go. I'll show you that document. So the very first part is the windshield survey, and that you need to make sure you put on there what your bus route number was and the date and time of the bus. You have the first 3 weeks to get this done, but it does take quite a bit of time, so don't put it off to the last minute. But please make sure you put the time and day of the bus that you rode. Describe the bus route, where'd you go, a little bit about the landscape and neighborhood, about the roadways, what you're seeing. Are they in good condition? Are they in poor repair? What kind of things are you seeing as far as public spaces and parks? Brownfields are those abandoned lots that just kind of lay by the wayside. You're evaluating, as we talked about looking, listening, and feeling, you're listening to, is this a loud area? Is it constant sounds of planes overhead? Is it fairly quiet? Is there a lot of traffic? Is it near, are some of these communities surrounded by the constant sounds of sirens because there's a lot of police or ambulance presence in that community? You're going to look at the economic state. Now here, you'll notice where it says include online statistics. That does mean you need to go in and look up the exact information on your community. Also, race and ethnicity observed. So you can talk about like what you saw on the bus, but then also, which gets a little more into here, but also what did you see past that? Were you going through predominantly white communities, Were you in some predominantly Hispanic communities? Did you see a wide variety of Island Pacific communities, that kind of thing? But you need to also go in and find the online demographics for your community and indicate that for these where you find the online information, you do need to provide the information or the link for the website that you used so that that can be verified in case something seems really off. So you can talk about who's physically riding the bus. As a general thing, you could say, I saw a range of people in their 20s to 40s, predominantly white. Most of them looked like they were headed to work, maybe one or two that were students, that type of thing. This doesn't mean that you have to interview every single person to find out their age, race, what they do, that kind of thing. Other observations about the bus riders. As you go down, this is where you're looking out the window. What can you see from the bus route? Explain. Now on these, you don't have to give the name of every single one. For example, you get this down later on to gas stations. We don't need to know the name of every single gas station that you passed, but that you passed 4 gas stations or you passed a Sinclair and a Shell. But it doesn't have to have overwhelming amounts of detail in it. You're going to look to see about different industries. Are there newer closed businesses, employment opportunities? Do you see a lot of help wanted signs? Look at the schools, libraries, other educational programs, hospitals, clinics, dentists, pharmacies, healers, all of that. So as you look, it's a fairly long list of what you're looking for. Places of worship. I'm going to tell you, I had a student once put there were no places of worship on their bus route. You may want to look a little more closely. There are lots of those around. Same with community centers and parks, recreational activities. Let's say that you are on a route and you truly don't see any restaurants and bars on that route. Then you need to put in the space that none were seen. Don't just leave it blank or it'll look like it wasn't addressed. Same for any of these that you don't see. Make sure you indicate that none were present. What kind of housing do you see? Is it a lot of single-family houses? Is it a lot of apartments? Does it look like there's a lot of open space? Does it look like things are really clean and really nice? Also, safety services. For the police department, do you see offices around there? Do you see, same with fire department? Online crime statistics, again, because you're looking online for this, you do need to include a link that tells where the information has come from so that we can verify any information that might seem a little off. Social services, there's a wide variety there. Transportation services, environmental safety. As you come down to these environmental safety conditions, here's a couple of websites that you can go to look at. You need to find out exactly what the toxic chemical list looks like in your area. Air pollution, that's a huge problem along the Wasatch Front, but find out what specific air pollution concern there is as far as ozone and particulate levels in your community or the community where you rode the bus. Sanitation, you're going to go through all of these things. That is all the windshield survey. So that big part right there is all part 1 on the windshield survey. When you come down, there's part 2. These are key informant interviews. You need to make sure that you interview individuals. One needs to be a community leader. You do need to include who you spoke to and the role. These can be mayors, city council, teachers, fire chiefs, people who are out there in the community. So choose a person there. Make sure that you address these prompts. Also, you need to ask a person on the bus the same information. So, who'd you speak to, how long they're in the bus, how often do they ride the bus? But you'll notice that toward the bottom, some of these are the same. So this is an opportunity for you to compare and contrast some of the concerns that community leaders versus community members have about health issues, violence, and any other concerns. Next, we'll go down to part 3. This is kind of your conclusion. You're going to describe the strengths of the community. You're also going to describe the weaknesses and kind of inferences. So what can you infer about the health based on these findings? Now, these need to be a couple sentences long. It doesn't need to be like gigantic multiple paragraphs, but it also needs to be more than just 1 or 2 words. Then the final part down here is the reflection piece. And in the reflection, you need to make sure you list the 3 most interesting things that you learned about the community. What did you learn about yourself? And then other observations about using the bus as a primary method of transportation. So if you had to use this as your method of transportation all the time, just a little bit about that. So if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your instructors. Notice this is worth 10 points. That's 10% of your overall grade. There is 1 point that goes along with professional writing standards. So make sure you're following grammar, punctuation, the basics. The windshield survey is 3 points, or 3% of your overall grade. The key informant interview is 2 points, conclusions 2 points, and reflection. So again, all those 10 points, that is 10% of your overall score. So if you're not quite sure what's going on, or you're having a difficult time finding a bus route, please email your instructor and let them know what options you have tried and kind of where you have hit those dead ends. And this assignment generally tends to be one of the most intimidating when people see it, but one of the most enjoyable once it's done. This is often in the end of semester evaluations written down as one of students' favorite assignments in this course. So I hope you enjoy.